The day Dad remarried was the day I became a ghost in my own home. My stepmother, Eleanor, had a smile that never quite reached her eyes, and her daughter, Clara, looked at me like I was a stain on her pristine world. The house, once filled with the warmth of my mom's laughter, now felt cold, sterile, like a museum exhibit I wasn't allowed to touch. Dad, caught between his old life and his new one, just seemed distant. He'd pat my shoulder, his eyes filled with a sad sort of apology, but he never really saw me. Not anymore. I spent most of my time in my room, the last fortress of my old life, surrounded by photos of Mom. Her smile was my only comfort. I tried. I really did. I'd offered to help Eleanor in the kitchen, but she just waved me away, saying she had it under control. I'd tried to talk to Clara about school, but she'd put in her earbuds and turn up the music. At dinner, the three of them would talk about their day, their plans, their world. I'd sit there, a silent observer, pushing food around my plate until I could politely excuse myself. Loneliness became a heavy blanket I couldn't shake off. I was just the stepdaughter, a title that felt more like a label for something unwanted. One rainy afternoon, I was looking for a book in the attic, a place I hadn't been in years. It was dusty and filled with forgotten things. Tucked away in a dark corner, inside an old wooden chest, I found a small, leather-bound diary. It wasn't my mom's. The initials on the cover were E.V. Eleanor Vance, my stepmother. Curiosity got the better of me. I know I shouldn't have, but I opened it. The first few entries were mundane, filled with teenage angst and dreams. But as I read on, the tone shifted. The words became desperate, filled with a secret sorrow. Eleanor wrote about a baby girl she had when she was just a teenager, a daughter she was forced to give up for adoption. She described the baby's tiny hands, her soft tuft of brown hair. My hair, she wrote about a small star-shaped birthmark on the baby's shoulder. I froze. I have a birthmark exactly like that, a tiny star on my left shoulder, my whole world tilted on its axis. The dates aligned perfectly. Eleanor wasn't just my stepmother. She was my biological mother. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My mom, the woman who had raised me, the woman I missed every single day, had adopted me. And my father, he must have known. He must have known this whole time. The secret they all kept, the distance, the coldness, it all started to make a twisted sort of sense. I felt a storm of emotions, shock, anger, betrayal, and a strange, aching pity for the young, heartbroken girl who wrote that diary. I couldn't keep it inside. That night, at dinner, the silence was thicker than usual. I finally broke it. My voice trembled as I placed the diary on the table. I found this, I said, looking directly at Eleanor. Her face went pale. Clara looked confused, and my dad. My dad just closed his eyes like he knew this day would come. I asked the question that was tearing me apart. Why didn't you tell me? The dam broke. Eleanor started to cry, not her usual composed, distant tears, but deep, wrenching sobs. She told me everything. How she met my dad years ago, how they fell in love too young, and how her strict parents forced her to give me up. My dad, heartbroken, eventually met the woman I knew as my mom. They couldn't have children of their own, so when they found out they could adopt a baby girl, me, it felt like a miracle, a second chance. They decided never to tell me, to protect me from the complicated truth. Dad explained that when my adoptive mom passed away, he reconnected with Eleanor. They thought they could finally be a family. A family? I shouted, the hurt pouring out of me. You call this a family? You've treated me like a stranger. And you... I looked at my dad. You let her. You stood by and watched me feel like I didn't belong in my own home, when all along this was the secret you were hiding. The confrontation was raw and painful. Clara, for the first time, looked at me with something other than disdain. Maybe it was sympathy. She whispered that she never knew, that Eleanor never talked about her past. In the aftermath of that explosive dinner, the house was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet. It wasn't empty anymore. It was heavy with unspoken thoughts, with the pieces of our shattered family lying on the floor. For days we moved around each other like ghosts, the raw ones of our secrets exposed. I didn't know what to do. The woman who raised me was still my mom in my heart, but now there was this other woman, my biological mother, who was a stranger filled with her own pain. And my dad, caught in the middle of a lifelong secret. Slowly, tentatively, things began to change. One evening, Eleanor knocked on my door. She didn't have her usual perfect mask on. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she held a small photo album. She sat on my bed and opened it. Inside were pictures of a teenager holding a tiny baby, me. She told me stories about those first few weeks, her voice thick with emotion. She told me how she'd thought of me every single day for 17 years. It wasn't an apology that would magically fix everything, but it was a start. It was the first time she had ever truly looked at me, not as her husband's daughter, but as her own. My dad started talking to me again, really talking. He apologized for his cowardice, for the distance. He explained his own grief and confusion, how he was trying to honor the memory of my adoptive mom while building a future with Eleanor. He admitted he handled it all wrong, that his fear of hurting me more only ended up causing the most pain. Even Clara started to thaw. She'd ask me small questions, offer me a snack, even sit with me in the living room without her earbuds in. It was awkward and clumsy, this process of getting to know each other. Healing isn't a straight line. There are days when the anger and hurt bubble up again. There are days when I look at Eleanor and still see a stranger. There are moments I miss my mom so fiercely it feels like a physical ache, but there are also new moments. Moments when Eleanor and I share a small smile over a cup of tea. Moments when my dad and I go for a walk, just the two of us like we used to. Moments when Clara actually laughs at one of my jokes. We are not a perfect family. We are a mosaic of broken pieces, glued together with difficult truths and a fragile, newfound hope. I'm no longer just the stepdaughter, a ghost in the hallways. I am a daughter, learning to navigate two different kinds of love, from the mother who raised me and the mother who gave me life. It's a complicated, messy, and painful journey, but for the first time in a long time, it feels like I'm finally on my way home. Thank you for watching. If you were moved by this story, please like and subscribe for more.